Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to talk to my guest today. Jenny, why don't you get us started by telling us who you are and what you do in the events industry?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Jennie Plumlee. I have been in corporate events for over 20 years. So I started my career in arena size events, coordinating. Then I went on to PR, did a couple of sponsorship management. And then I moved over to a consulting firm for almost 20 years where I built the event program from the ground up. So when I left a couple of months ago, I was managing four verticals. So I was managing all the events and experiences. So the conference sponsorships and activations, I was managing field marketing, and then also kind of the last one was our webinar program. So it was really exciting. And then I was doing some marketing operations because we didn't have a formal person in that role. So that was really great. And then since then, I have launched a new Instagram channel to teach people how to manage marketing and really how to drive business from events. So that's been kind of my new passion project on the side. It's been exciting. It's only 3 weeks new, so we're just kind of building it from the ground up. And I think they say you're flying a plane while you're building it, and that's kind
Yeah,
of how it feels. So yeah, it's been
absolutely.
exciting.
Nice. And, it's interesting because I think it is like it's so needed. Someone recently said to me, and apologies to the person who said it because I can't remember and to quote it back, but someone pointed out that there's really no education around field marketing, right? Like when I was in
Yeah.
school, like I did event management and then I did marketing, but never was it field marketing. It was, you know, digital marketing, traditional marketing, email marketing, but there's not really like a course on field marketing. There's not really like people think, okay, I want to do events and but they don't really know that that's field marketing. Like it's really an interesting gap in considering how much business is done through field marketing, like how
Yeah.
little attention it gets in marketing programs and in like in school programs and training programs and even then in event programs, right? My event management education was really around like building a budget and building a project plan, which like of course all of those things are very important, but what are most people actually doing with that after they leave school, right? And so how are you connecting that events and marketing, which is why I originally went back to school for marketing because I realized, oh, in order to do corporate events, 99% of them are marketing based, right? So that's when I went back, really just to get the piece of paper because it didn't actually teach me anything about field marketing.
Yeah. So in my previous career at my previous company, I was hiring a lot of marketers, and a lot of them came with 3 to 5 years experience, but most of them came with like from very small businesses or even small law firms, but they were a one man show. And so I realized very quickly a lot of them had not had basic training around corporate marketing and like you said, field marketing events. We called it something different. But so I started training them over and over, and I realized like there's really a huge need here. And to your point, like all corporations have a form of like field marketing. And field marketing is kind of my bread and butter, but I do a lot more than just field
Sure.
marketing, kind of like corporate events a little bit more in general now that I'm building strategy for marketing companies or for companies in general. But I realized like, wow, like there's just some basic knowledge that people could probably benefit from, whether they're a small business owner or they're actually in the career of corporate events. And so that's kind of where the idea of the Instagram came from. They're very short snippets, right? Because if you really want to get into this, you really do need to be trained in kind of a more formal fashion. But these are really great snippets that people can kind of take away and put into action right away. So that's kind of where it started. It's been kind of fun and meeting really great new people that I hadn't met before. And there's a whole industry. I did also realize like now universities are actually picking up on the need for corporate marketing and corporate events in particular. So, as far as I know, there's at least 10 universities that actually have a formal degree in corporate events now. So, I think that's been really exciting to kind of see that there really is some more awareness around the just how important this part of the marketing program is.
Yeah, and you mentioned the being the one man or one woman, one person show in a lot of small organizations. And I have talked a lot about how events can often be an island of one, right? You might be on a
Yes.
marketing team of 5 or 6 people, at even like a mid-sized company, but you're the only one who really understands the events program. One thing I hadn't realized until I had it was that I'd never really had an event marketing manager as my manager for like the first over 10 years of my career, right? I was always reporting to either a VP of marketing or a head of sales, and like, sure, they could tell me how to do marketing and they could coach me on what they needed, but they couldn't really coach me about event marketing, right? And then, 10 years into my career, I get this amazing boss who knows event marketing and has done bigger programs and is able to teach me so much, right? And, when I left that organization, someone else started reporting to her, and I said to my old boss, I'm like, yeah, like, you're great. And like, I will always say, like, you're the best, but it is also unique to have someone to actually learn from in a role, right? Because you're working in-house, you're often one or two event people. You likely are reporting to someone with a more generic marketing title. Maybe it's demand gen, maybe it's VP of, like, it's everybody except events, right? And so where are you learning, and how are you, like, even, okay, you've done school, you're 3-5 years out, like you said, where are you upskilling, right? And it's really up to the individual to like seek out the education with the associations or with their network, because they're just not getting it where they work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think you're really lucky that you had somebody.
Yeah.
And a lot of organizations, kind of mid-level organizations, or some of them are kind of eliminating that role right now when they're having
Yeah.
to squeeze budget. So that's kind of unique that you got that role. I realized, like, in kind of looking in the past couple months as I was launching this Instagram, I got to talk to some really incredible people. One of the best people that I remember having a conversation with was Colleen Bisconte, she heads over events and experience for IBM, and she was phenomenal. And she has done some really great things for that program, and had sat down with her and kind of just picked her brain and talked a little bit about her journey and what she's doing and what she believes in and where the programs are going and where marketing. And I think those positions are few and far between. They're at the really large company level. So I kind of feel like, I'm definitely not there, and I'm definitely not at the beginning. I'm somewhere in the middle and still learning and still growing. And the industry is growing and changing so much rapidly as well. So all that to say is that it's been a fun experience, and yes, I do think there's a need for people who want to get into this industry to have some basic knowledge and to be better, more effective. I think a lot of people think of course, people listening to your podcast don't probably think that, but most people out there in the world think event planning is all one big umbrella. And there's different nuances of event planning. And obviously the difference between kind of party planning, or even maybe just like wedding planning, versus corporate events, is that we're really trying to drive business from corporate events. So it's a completely different strategy. We do it differently. We target differently. We manage the event differently. I mean, it's all about networking and driving business. And I think it's a very different strategy. And so I think you need to have a marketing background to be able to do corporate events well. So it's been kind of fun merging those things together, because I'm equally passionate about marketing, and then the role that events play into the marketing, I think, can just be a huge power move if done correctly.
Yeah, and I think that it's such a weird time in the industry, because like over the last couple of years, like we've proven that people want to meet in person. Like we have proven, like there's no denying, like people want to meet in person, and there's lots going on. Like I know that the job market is tough right now. There's a lot of uncertainty around funding and travel and that kind of thing. But still people are meeting in person, right? And still people are finding the way, life finds a way. Like people are finding the way, and they're, maybe they're adjusting or changing it. But I think we are proving that people want to meet in person while also feeling the struggle of not being respected by executive teams, by accounting teams who just see us as like this spend center. And, I would often have conversations with people in finance of like, I will give you the most beautiful spreadsheets you've ever seen in your life. And like my budgets are tight, But I need flexibility. I need to be able to make purchases quickly. I can't get
Mm.
caught up in a 3 week procurement cycle to order something under $2,000. Like we can't be doing it, right? It's different when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on a contract, right? And so it's interesting that we're both like losing respect after getting it, fighting so hard, and we'll continue to fight for it because that's just what the events industry does. But we're seeing this like mix of like, oh, we have to do it in person. There's more events. Like if you try and book a venue in 2025, 2026, like good luck, right? So it's an interesting like shift in the industry, and as like a lot of people are retiring from the industry. A lot of people left during the pandemic, and now, these new grads that are coming out and saying, okay, well, like, what does this world look like for me if I want to plan events and I don't want to plan social events, because that is a whole different beast, right? So, like what is it now? Like I know you're talking about folks like the 3 to 5 years out, but those new grads, like the people who are kind of probably started their degrees during the pandemic for a program that like couldn't even run basically, right? Like, what do you think they're looking for? What is it that you wish that you had that you're like bringing into the content and education that you're sharing with folks?
Well, one of the things I'm trying to bring in is just kind of a base knowledge. I think that I did a recent, just the marketing strategy. I mean, just basic knowledge that you need. First you need to be known, right? You need that awareness, then you need credibility. You need to actually, people need to believe what you say you can do, that you can do, and then obviously engagement. And that's to me, you know, closest to the business opportunities. I think done right, events should drive 20% of the pipeline. But to your point, I think in 2025, it's more difficult than it's ever been. I mean,
Yeah.
they're gone are the days where you send out an invitation and people actually show up. And then, I mean, what's even more difficult is getting the right people there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very much like, I'd rather have 10 of the right buyers
Yeah.
in the room than 50 of like mid-level management. That's just a waste of my time most of the time. It depends. There's other times where that is appropriate. So I don't want to say that that's not appropriate. Again, go back to the marketing strategy. But then also you mentioned kind of the lack of respect. I think, the business shows up at an event and they're like, how hard is this? You send out an invitation and people just show up. I'm like, oh, that's how it was 20 years ago. Let's talk about today,
Yeah.
and so it is, we are continue to fight for the respect, especially that, you know, and I think sometimes we're working so hard behind this. I think sometimes we're not showing the
Yeah.
VP of marketing or the CMO or even the CEO the work that goes behind this. And so when positions are eliminated, they're like, wow, like we can just kind of keep these, younger people in their career and pay them less and not have to have like that experienced person on staff because this just isn't that hard. And I think the reality of that is probably some on us of like not sharing like how difficult this is and how marketing strategy is like in corporate events is way more difficult than it probably appears. But it's a journey and it's fun. And you know what? I sometimes we're a glutton for punishment. I love it still. Like
I know.
I'm going into another role that's field marketing related. Like I still love it. I feel like it's a fun game. I really love kind of the corporate event world.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talk about like it not looking hard, and sometimes it's it's a delicate balance, and someone was just talking about this on LinkedIn about, being the calm in the storm, right? And I often joke like I'm kind of like the flight attendant at an event. Like if you see me panicking, like we should all be
Mm-hmm.
panicking, right? Like you should be looking for the fire, right? Like, and even if it's a fire, I'm probably gonna be like, okay, everybody, single file out this way, right? And leave all your stuff behind, right? Like I think, because
Exactly.
one, we are trained, especially over time, to maintain a cool composure, like the duck, right? The duck with the feet flapping. Um, you're the calm, cool, collected on the top, and then freaking out on the bottom, right? But what is that balance of showing them that it's not that easy? And I had this example years ago. I was volunteering for an event, and at the like debrief we were talking about how great the event was, and everyone was like, yeah, and there were no problems, and I'm like, yeah, I spent 2 hours trying to fix a projector issue that eventually we fixed and found a solution for, but like, can we just mark that in the debrief that that didn't just happen, like that that happened, and like because they all showed up and everything was fine, right? And it's like, yeah, it looked fine, and to the attendees it was fine, but also there was a lot of problems beforehand that I had to deal with and that we resolved before actually getting started, right? And so it's very true that sometimes they think executives will think, oh, well, you know, we have 3 or 4 people doing this role. They can do it. Like they seem fine. We can have 2 or 3 people doing this role. And then 6 months later, they're like, what happened? Like, what, what's going on? Why
Yeah,
is everyone burnt out? Why is everyone freaking out? Right?
You're going in and out a little bit, so I'm trying to capture you. But I think some of those roles, like they will be able to succeed for 3 to 6 months. But then again, like they're going to, and some of them are super capable and they're going to learn how to do this, but they're going to have to evolve the strategy. I mean, like you said, this kind of industry is constantly changing. And so you're going to have to evolve and change. Like you can keep the strategy that you have for probably 6, maybe even 12 months. It depends on kind of where you are in the cycle, but eventually it's going to have to move. And you're right, like so much more goes behind the scenes. I did arena size events, and we had we had an ambulance there at one time because somebody had a brain aneurysm. I mean, when you're dealing with 15 to 20,000 women, there were a lot of issues that kind of happened behind the scenes. But the goal of it is that nobody saw any of those things and that everybody was fine. And at the end, like everything was taken care of. But that is right. You are putting out a lot of fires behind the scenes. And if it looks smooth, then you've done your job. Because when you get there, 99% is done. And so they just see the 1% that you're like, oh, this is so easy and great. And you're like, oh, yeah, well, 99% is done. I remember showing my boss one time, like just a basic round table was like 115 lines of things to do. And I remember, you know, somebody commenting and saying like, well, can't you just simplify this? Like, I mean, I think you're just, you know, blowing this out of proportion. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like it really does take 30 to 40 hours to pull off 1 2 hour. If you do it right, right? And of course, the more experienced you are, the faster you are at some things. But some things just take time. Like it is a million details to pull off one thing. And so all of our corporate marketing fellow friends are wearing a lot of different hats, you know, and even more to your point, those smaller organizations where they're asking one person to do 15 jobs. Like I talked to one person who's starting a business. We were talking about her marketing strategy, and she had, you know, kind of posted what she wants in her marketing manager that she's going to hire. And I was like, you know, this is like 15 jobs, right? And so we kind of had to break it in and say, I think you can get around to like hiring 3 people to do this role, but just acknowledge that each of those people are doing 5 jobs. But it's all fun. I mean, I enjoy marketing. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was worth it. And I do really truly believe that marketing is pulling business. And I think that corporate events should be driving revenue, or they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, for sure. I know, like, I've worked in organizations where event influence was like half of closed won deals, right? Because we were just so dialed into what we were doing, and like it's usually just the challenge of getting the data right to show that, right? And also like having the conversations with your rev ops of like, no one interacts with one piece of marketing and then buys, especially in B2B, right? Like unless your product is like really cheap, like it's just not happening. And so I think that like also, how do we fit into the whole ecosystem, right? Because, and I remember one time I said to a VP, you will never have a hosted event be your first touch. It's just impossible. They had to find out about the event. So they either found out about it through email, through social, through a sales rep calling them, like something, right? At a trade show, it's different because people are walking around a trade show, they don't know you necessarily. But if they're at your hosted event, it is not a first touch. And so we cannot, like if you're expecting first touch at your event, you're hosting an event, don't host the event because you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, you really do need that awareness, that credibility, and then finally to get to the engagement. 100%. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part, I mean, that's kind of more of the traditional funnel.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we're coming up to time, and I know, so we've talked a lot about, how you are helping and starting to put it, I know you're relatively new to putting all this great content out there, but
Very new
very
to
new,
doing
but
this, to doing
yeah,
this.
but that's okay. That's what's needed, right? And it's people
New to the
doing their thing.
Instagram, yes.
Yeah,
New to trying to
exactly.
get it out because I was just like we talked about. I was surprised that a lot of people don't know some basic things, and I think if they had some just basic knowledge of how to drive business with events, whatever industry they're in, they can be more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you think, like, obviously your channel is great, but like what else can people do if they're like, I really don't know enough about marketing, or maybe I'm in a different marketing role and we're starting to talk about events or we're thinking about events. Like, what can people do if they want to know more about the industry and how to think strategically? I have a whole other episode on just strategically thinking
Mhm.
about events, but like, what resources have you seen that have been helpful for that? Or is it like truly there's nothing?
Yeah, no, that's not true. There is more. I was surprised once I kind of started kind of in this Instagram world. There's some really great people like you and some others out there that are trying to do different pieces of this puzzle,
Yeah.
right? Like we're all kind of trying to chip away and help people. And honestly, like I laugh because I'm spending money. I'm not getting a dime from this. I'm just kind of, again, it's my current passion project. I'm just enjoying the scenery along the road. But there are a lot of different ways you can learn more. I mean, clearly, I do believe you need to know marketing before you can do corporate events effectively. And so obviously there's a ton of marketing. There's a lot more marketing than there is corporate events. So I think that's a good place to start. I mentioned some degrees at colleges. There's professional associations. I obviously did a reel about this, about people trying to get into corporate events. How do you do it? Professional certifications, the CMP is about 6 months. There's a lot of others out there too. I will say, clearly I think there is a lack of some things out there. I looked on LinkedIn. I didn't see much there. Like I looked around before I decided to kind of go down this avenue, and I do think there is kind of a lack. But I also think, to your point, you mentioned like some people in these roles that manage event programs, ask a mentor, get a mentor. Like,
Mm.
I have something coming up on how to get a mentor and how to keep them. Really important because I think along my career, I would not be where I am today if I didn't have these incredible mentors in both marketing and in events. Like,
Right.
there are, it's a different kind of mentorship. So, and then obviously there's a lot of materials out there that you can read, and so there is a lot out there. I won't say there is enough, or I don't
Sure.
feel like I
Yeah,
would go
yeah.
down this road. But I think there's a good place to get started and just kind of follow some people and have some fun with it. I mentioned on the reel, it's like, hey, why don't you just volunteer for a small business owner and help them plan a couple of events? Like, if you want to get started, start just trying to do it. This benefits them. I've done a couple of things for free for just some small business owners that I was passionate about their business and I wanted to help them. And so I'm building some, business strategy for them. And so I think just kind of, if you're interested in this, just try it out, see if you
Yeah.
like it, and then get better at it. You got to tweak it, and every business is different. So, you learn
That's
along
true
the way.
because I think it's important to do it and try it, because if you're new in the industry and you might not, you will quickly learn the things you love and the things you hate, and that will be very helpful to your career. But also, is this for you? Are
Oh
you the
gosh.
person? Are you ready to ride that roller coaster, right? Because my mom
Yeah.
teases me all the time. She's like, "You are insane. Like, I don't know why you do this." And I'm like, "Because I cannot do anything else. Like, I literally cannot do anything else. And anytime I have thought about it or tried, I've just been miserable." So you know, it takes a special kind of person, and I think, like, you're right, like trying out, like, that's why I volunteered so much early in my career, like with associations or with nonprofits even, like, which I know are a different style of event, but you're still like marketing an event, you're still like
Yeah.
driving results, like you're still learning how all the pieces fit together. And it's a great way to, again, realize, do you want to do this full time? Is this, again, that roller coaster ride and like the
Yeah, I
peaks
mean,
and
it's
valleys of
hard.
events, right? And the way that, and also the way that we work is, right, like very, like, you go from insanely busy, like you haven't checked your group, you come back to a group chat and you're like, oh, we're going to Mexico, what's happened? Like you're so lost, versus then you get like those dead times after an event and you're like, well, what do I do with myself? Right, like, are you ready to ride that wave too? Right. So yeah, it's
It is an adventure, and not everyone makes it. You are
no.
right. It is hard. There's a lot of sense of urgency. There's a lot of stakeholder management. And then again, like it changes. The
Yeah.
second you think you have it under control, like something pops up,
Yeah.
something goes wrong, or just like you need to change strategy because this is not working. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
fun. I don't know. You're right. Like I don't know why, but I still love it.
You have to. If you didn't love it, you can't do it. Like, you just can't, right? So,
Agreed.
well, thank you so much for being
Yes.
here. Where can people find more about your content, and follow you, and learn all the great stuff you're putting out there?
Yeah, great. I have an Instagram channel called Corporate Events Jennie. I spell Jennie Jennie, and that's fun. It's been fun. And then I also post on TikTok if that's your thing. I post similar content. But yes, we have a lot of different reels coming up and a lot of different content planned. So keeping it active, it's been fun. So please engage and let me know what you want to hear more of.
Amazing. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.